Ah, I
There
will
we go.
say okay instead of leaving the meeting, storming out.
All right, let's do this. Hello, everyone. My name is Philip Leonardo Campo. I am your hostess with the mostest for this evening's workshop. Thank you for making the time to be here today. I'm sure you all are eager for the information on grant writing, so we appreciate it. Uh, Usually with Xpace events, we start with the land acknowledgement, so I'll just go ahead and do that real quick. So while we are in different places, this land in which Xbase operates on has been a site of human activity for 15,000 years, serving as the home of indigenous people and nations long before the colonial project. These are the original territories of the Huron-Wendat, the Anishinaabe Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nations, and the Métis Nation. This territory exists in connection with the One Dish, One Spoon Wampum Belt, a peace treaty established between the Iroquois Confederacy and the Confederacy of the Ojibwe and allied nations to care for the land and the precious resources around the Great Lakes. The dish representing the land itself and the spoon representing responsibility in sharing its resources. We must continue to uphold this treaty as it addresses the entirety of our relations and relationships. For us at Xpace, this treaty informs our intention to support artists who exist on the margins through public programming and the sharing of additional resources for arts practitioners like this workshop. Time and time again, we see land acknowledgements feel hollow and automated when performed by institutions. We at Xpace acknowledge that words can only do so much. We recognize the inherent failure of the land in the limits of the land acknowledgement itself, how they're co-opted by systems of power. But despite its intrinsic failings, for us, the land acknowledgement instead has to serve as something that is alive and ever shifting, unable to be completed. It's got to be an endless process of change as we commit to always be reflecting and responding and learning about what it means to live and work on stolen land. Just a bit about Xpace before I toss it off to Peter. So founded in 2004, Xpace Cultural Centre is an artist-run space located at the intersection of Lansdowne and Dundas, mandated towards supporting the professional development of emerging artists, designers, curators, writers, and other creatives in the city of Toronto. Among the ways in which we do so include showing work by emerging arts practitioners across our 4 exhibition spaces, through which our entire programming year is selected through an annual open call for submissions, which is currently out. I believe the deadline is
June 9th.
June 9th. Yes. I'm looking at the Xpace calendar. It's like right in front of me and I still can't. Oh, I see it now. Thanks,
At
Matt.
11:59 p.m. Yeah.
And not a minute sooner.
Yeah.
Or later. Yeah, so the open call is a great space for artists in the city to just pitch whatever they're working on. They are themed calls, but we always make sure themed calls are very open in and of itself. So there's always a through line in the work that you're going to propose. So we're excited to see what you guys propose. So yeah, you can just head over to Xpace Info for more information. We also commission essays from emerging writers to accompany all of our shows. We host free workshops, events, and other public programming that range from really practical things like tenants' rights or tax workshops to really fun social things like DJing or tarot card reading. Not to say that grant writing isn't fun. But if you have an idea for a workshop that you'd like to share, we have an open call for workshop proposals as well out right now too, so you can check that out. And additionally, we also commission posters for all these workshops and events from emerging illustrators and graphic designers. Xpace is interested in fighting against the perceived notion that artists do not need to be paid or paid in exposure, meaning that Xpace commits to equitable exchanges for labor. So all opportunities with us, be it showing, be it writing, be it designing, or like facilitating workshop are paid. We also have a Facebook group and a pretty active social media account where we look at what else is happening in the city, from free or pay what you can workshops to open calls for submissions outside of X spaces or jobs in the arts, and reshare them to the larger community. So it's a great resource. We're really interested in fostering and teaching artists like how to be self-sufficient and sustainable in this crazy, silly city. So we encourage you to check out our Instagram and look at all the stuff that we have to offer. Yeah, I think that's it for me. Thank you, Peter, for being here today. We're really excited to have you. Maybe I should just give it to you.
Sure. Yeah. So my name is Peter Kingstone, and I'm the Visual Media and Leadership Program Manager at the Toronto Arts Council. I've been there since 2012, so I don't know, is that 13 years? Been there a while. Um, yeah, so I've done this sort of talk for Xpace before, and I've always enjoyed it. So I'm happy to be back and speaking to you all again tonight. I thought I would go through both what Toronto Arts Council is, tell you what we get ourselves up to, then talk about what you can apply for as artists and as curators or as part of an organization. But we're really going to delve into a visual artists individual program about creating new work. So we'll end up really looking at that application, breaking down the ways you can apply to it, and sort of thinking through what you'd like to put forward. I like these conversations. I like these to be more conversational than me presenting. That's a little difficult on Zoom, understandably. But I'm going to ask both Natalie and Philip to maybe help a little bit. If one of you can look at the chat, and if it's a question that it's something I'm talking about right now, then please bring it forward. Or if someone's putting up their hand, you can sort of tell me to stop and you can ask your question. I find that to be the most best way for everyone to go forward. Or I'll just be rambling about what I wanted to say, which may not be exactly what you want to hear. So I'm going to share my screen, if that's okay. Are we ready to start? I'm looking at Natalie. Yep. Okay. I will share my screen, and we can go about what we're going to talk about. Okay. So this is the Toronto Arts Council website, and this is how I will sort of start our introduction into what TAC is. So TAC is a para-public organization, meaning we're not the government. We are paid through a grant by the City of Toronto. So the grant from the City of Toronto is about $25 million that we then disperse to all different arts across the city and arts organizations across the city and artists across the city. This gets renewed every single year. And it's part of the Economic Development and Culture program that we are a para-public beside them. So we have to respond every year. We have to make an application basically, and also, say what we've been up to. But it also means that they don't tell us what we have to do. So there's no, we don't have to report on the individual applications or the projects or the organizations that we fund and, defend them to the city. We are here for the artists and arts organizations and community of Toronto. So if I'm speaking too fast, also tell me to slow down. I've done this way too often, so sometimes I ramble quickly.
Gotcha.
Okay. So yeah, we are run by the people in particular. So all our panels, all our juries, all our board are people that work within the arts, except for I think 3 board members, which are city councilors. But other than that, yeah, we are artist run necessarily. So including all the people that work there. So myself, as I said, I've been there for, whatever, 12, 13 years. But I'm an artist, and I'm an artist first. So I still apply for grants, not to Toronto Arts Council, but Ontario Canada Council. I still put up shows, I write, I draw, I make videos. So I'm still a practicing artist, and I'm here to help you. I'm being paid to help you access funding for yourselves. And I'm happy to help you sort of think through what you're up to and sort of put together the best grant possible. I'm in particular, I keep going to say this a bunch of times tonight, is I don't make any decisions on who's funded. So I'm here to help you. the other thing I wanted to say, so I spent a good part of my life being a professor or an instructor at many different universities. And I still occasionally teach a class on sort of professional practice. So how to become an artist who can support themselves once they've left school, or wherever you happen to be in your life if you're thinking about ways of trying to support yourself. I'm happy to answer those questions too. I'm also going to say many times I'm completely open to having coffee or tea or having a phone call or a Zoom conversation, or any way you'd like to have that conversation. You can just send me an email. I had a really great conversation earlier today at my local coffee shop with an artist, and that's the favorite part of my job, is speaking to artists about what they do. Okay. So that's the about us portion of, but let's look at what we can provide. So the TAC grants, they're based in two different ways. We have discipline-based grants, and we have strategic programs. Then we also have TAC in partnership, which is a weird space. We'll go through these. So we offer grants to Black arts. So those are Black individuals or Black-led organizations who are not necessarily producing things within a Black diaspora or a Black culture, but they are define themselves as Black. Creative communities, which used to be known as community arts, but this is a space for both individuals or organizations or ad hoc groups to create projects working along with community. Dance is fairly understandable, but it's individuals or dance organizations who might be workshopping a dance, putting on a dance, or putting on a dance festival. Indigenous arts, similar to Black arts, it's Indigenous individuals or Indigenous-led organizations that are applying to make work or show work. Literary is, again, organizations that are interested in putting on literary events, mostly literary festivals or readings. But they're also, we have a literary a writing grant. So if you're interested in writing new work, you can apply there. Music, again, organizations that put on music, but also we have a recording grant and a grant to get your music recorded if you're a musician. Theater is, again, for organizations and collectives. If you're, you can be workshopping a production or putting on a production or putting on a festival of other people's productions, you can apply in theater. On the individuals portion of theater is if you're a playwright and you want to apply as a playwright. Visual media arts is what I do, so we'll get back to that because that's what we're going to delve into. I just want to go through some of the strategic programs. So as an individual or an organization or a collective or an ad hoc group, you can have one of these discipline-based grants as well as having a strategic program grant. So you can have two grants going at the same time. In fact, if you're a Black artist or a Black-led group, you could have three. You could have a Black arts, you could have another discipline-based program, and a strategic program all happening at once. So the strategic programs we have are animating historic sites, which they take many historic sites across the city, and they ask artists to engage with that historic site or engage with the community around that historic site to sort of produce something new and innovative or historical with a new gaze around that site. So similarly with Toronto parks, we have several parks around the city that you engage with, and you also work along with the Toronto Park people, which each park seems to have a group of community volunteers that work with that park. And you would be producing something that would engage with that park or engage with the community around that park. Artisan Library is on hiatus this year. It'll be coming back next year. It was a sort of a residency where you would occupy a library for 1 to 2 months, and you would make your own work, but also engage with the community and making work together. but I'm not sure how it's being changed. So that's how it used to be. You'll have to look at it in next year to figure that out. Newcomers and refugees, there's two parts of this program. The newcomers and refugees for the individual, so that if you were a newcomer, meaning or a refugee that you've been in Canada for less than 7 years, you can apply as a mentee, and you can apply with a mentor, or you can get us to help you find you a mentor to sort of investigate whatever you're interested in investigating. So if it is like I really want to know about commercial art galleries, or I really want to know about how the art world works here in Toronto, Ontario, or Canada, you'd want to apply there, and you yourself and your mentor would each receive $5,000 for the year of work that you'd be doing together. If you're an organization, an ad hoc group, and have a project or program that is really focusing on newcomers and refugees, you can apply in this to get funded for that particular program. Open Door is a space where if we can't figure out how to fund the thing that you want to do, we put it in Open Door mostly. There are mostly projects that are really looking at the inner workings of the art world or inner workings of an artist's institution, and sort of trying to break them open them up and make them better and stronger. So projects around accessibility in theater, or accessibility in any space often end up in Open Door. The digital solutions incubators, if you have a project or an organization that you think is not about making digital art, it's about the digital world being a space where you can help you with this. So you're linked up with students from TMU, and you work together on creating this solution for whatever project you have. The Leaders Lab is a project that I run, and that asks 16 leaders from across the city of Toronto, cultural leaders across the city of Toronto. It's something that they applied for, so it's something that you could apply for. And sort of mid-career, early mid-career, late emerging sort of arts administrators that want to learn more about the city or learn about how to collaborate across lines. And the in partnership, so what that means is somebody else does the granting. So we give money to another organization and they figure it out. So you can also apply to any of these if these make sense for you. So artists in the schools, you are working along with students for TDSB Creates, which is a 4-week spring festival, which is a paid program, which I highly recommend if as artists that you might have that time to give and get paid to do. And it also puts you on the calendar for the TDSB, because they often are asking artists to come in at other times to help them work out. Outreach Toronto is for youth-led initiatives, and I think it's under 27 now. I can't exactly remember, but so it's individuals or a youth-led organization that can apply for grants. They are an amazing organization, so if you happen to be in that age group, they really do a lot of hand-holding and helping you write the grant that you're applying to them. So, I would also think about applying there if you're in that age group.
Peter.
Yeah.
We have a question in the chat about residence and eligibility. I assume you're going to get into that a bit, but would you rather I ask now or?
Yeah, I mean, I think asking now, because if the person if they don't fall into it, then maybe they might not want to stick around for the next 2 hours.
So Raha's basically just asking, do we have to reside in Toronto to apply for these grants, or can York Region residents apply as well?
So you have to live in the city of Toronto. So that's from Etobicoke, it's including North York, not York, but North York, including the waterfront, and including Etobicoke, but not Oakville or Mississauga. And whatever's on the other side of Scarborough, I always forget the other side of Scarborough. Yes, you have to live in the city of Toronto, because The funding comes from the City of Toronto, so we have to only fund those living in the City of Toronto.
Yeah, Raha, feel free to like unmute yourself if you have follow-up questions, or if that was good, let us know.
Okay.
Great.
So the Neighborhood Arts Network, which I encourage everyone to join, it's free to join. They do lots of projects around speaking to arts and artists about different topics and ideas. Everything from like, what does it mean to go on a residency, or what does it mean to get a show, and it's all types of artists across the city. So you will be engaging with dancers and musicians, which is a very exciting sort of project that you might be interested in. And they give awards every year. So it's always fun to be a part of that. And Toronto Lit Up is if you are launching a book. So if you're launching a book, you can apply to Toronto Lit Up and get some funds for the launch. So that's what we do. I'm going to go into visual media arts more, but please stop me if any. I'm going to have a drink.
Yeah, everyone, if you have questions, feel free to just like unmute yourself and go for it.
Hey, I have a question.
Sure.
I was wondering if so I do like podcasting and audio projects, and I was wondering what which category would be best for me.
Yeah, sure. So podcasting and audio projects, we fund audio projects in media arts. So your deadline is October 15th. And so slightly different application than the visual arts, but you'll be able to learn sort of ways of putting that application together if you stick around.
We have a question in the chat
Okay.
from Beth, wondering if writing a screenplay would fall under literary or media arts.
We do not fund writing a screenplay. Don't ask me why. But yeah, so we in media arts we only fund the production and post-production of a media arts program or project. That can be a single channel film, or it can be an installation, can be audio, an audio only production, but we don't fund pre-production or the writing of a screenplay. There's someone with their hand up here. Oh, Gladys, it's their hand up.
So I'm interested in applying for grants for a curatorial project, and I would like to know, like, to curate an exhibition. So which grant should I apply for?
So you're applying for Visual Media Arts Projects Presentation.
Okay.
And the next deadline is August 1st.
Oh,
So, and that's open now. And as an individual, you can apply for that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. So, as you see on this sort of, we're in the visual media arts space. You can always talk to me again here. We have 3 different operating spaces. So that's for organizations that have demonstrated a history of showing work in Toronto. We usually need them to have received at least 2 grants from Toronto Arts Council. They have budgets of over $75,000. And then they can apply into operating, depending on what they do, or it depends on the year that they can apply. So we have 43 clients in visual media arts that receive operating, Xpace being one of them, as well as 42 other ones. And in total, the Toronto Arts Council funds 247 operating clients across the city in all the other disciplines. So as Gladys, I think, asked about the visual media arts projects presentation. So these are, if you are interested in curating a show. If you're curating a show, you can't also be an artist in that show. You have to just be the curator of that show. Or you can be doing a film series as an individual, curating show as an individual. Or you can be part of an ad hoc group or organization putting on a film festival, putting on gallery shows, doing a series of readings about visual art or media arts, or doing workshops or having residencies or anything like that is where you'd want to apply for these sort of presentation grants. These are sort of towards the public or definitively towards the public. The Media Arts Program for Creation, which is October 15th, which I was speaking about with the audio work, the not iPod, the audio work that someone asked about, the podcast work. So this will fund podcasts, so audio work. It can also fund audio installations if that's what you're interested in, but it also funds single channel film and video, so things that you would go to a theater to see, or it could fund video installations, or it could also fund video games, or other computer work, or website work, if that's what you're interested in. Or it can fund robotics, if you're a robotic artist. Or you could do, if you're doing performance with robotics, it would fund that as well. And then visual artist creation, program creation, which is what I will talk about mostly tonight, is where we'll go.
Peter, we have a couple of questions.
Let's go for them.
I do some kind of reading.
Sorry?
Can I do some reading?
Of course.
Thank you. Okay, so Raha asks, for writing, for example, writing a novel in Farsi could be granted, or would the writing have to be in English?
The writing could be in any language. I think we ask people to at least give a translation of up to 20 pages for the panelists to read. But the final product can be in any language. And that's the same for any, like if you're making a film, it can be in another language, that's fine.
Okay. And then we have another question from Fatima. And they say, hi, I'm an emerging artist in sculpture. Which grant would I be able to apply to?
Sculpture is visual arts program creation. It's where we're going to go.
Okay, for Raha or Fatima, if you'd like to ask some follow-up questions, now's your time. Okay, lovely.
I mean, Raha, Ruta Priya would be the person you'd want to speak to about literary. She's the literary programs manager. And the literary application deadline is mid-June. So you might want to reach out to Ruta Priya. It's rutapriya at torontoartscouncil.org. If you want any further questions beyond my limited knowledge of literary.
Thank you. I am Raha. I want to ask a question. Hi, sorry. Um, um, Even if we have written the book, the novel, and we have published it, we can ask for a grant for it, or no, it shouldn't be published.
It has to be new work. So you have to be creating new work.
Oh,
so
okay.
It's for the next novel that you're writing is what you're going to be asking funding for.
And for the next novel, and we should have a sample of 20 pages for the previous novel or the next novel?
No, you want 20 pages of the novel you're working on.
Oh, the next novel.
The next novel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And sorry, could you please repeat the name of the person who have the information about literally?
Sure. I'll just open up the literary.
Thank you.
So literary, if you go to program manager, what's it going to tell me? June 17th is the deadline, and you want to contact Ruta Priya. Do you see that there on the screen?
Yeah.
So it's Ruta Priya at torontoartscouncil.org is her name.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
I also see a question from Radhi, but I'm like, Radhi, you just want to say it?
Yeah, sure. Hi.
Hi.
So I'm basically a designer and I usually work for like making like publication or book design. then which grants should I be applying for that kind of work?
So, so all of the grants at Toronto Arts Council are for, you can't be working on someone else's work. You have to be creating your own work. And we don't fund publishing. So if you're right, like if you're doing a book design for somebody else, yeah, we can't fund that.
I see. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so here we are at visual arts creation. Unless there's other questions.
No, you're good. Go for it.
So let's just look at the guidelines, which are available here. It says full program guidelines, but we'll open them up here. You know, the guidelines, we keep trying to make them simpler and simpler, but they're often not as simple as we think they are. So if they're confusing, do not hesitate to reach out and ask us questions. As I said, the most exciting part of my job is speaking to artists. So we take applications on an ongoing basis, and it's closed for the month of October. So I can take a little bit of a break, but otherwise you can apply at any time. So what does this program support? So TAC is committed to equity and inclusion. We welcome and encourage applications from all Toronto artists, including but not limited to Black artists, Indigenous artists, artists of color, artists who are deaf, have disabilities or living with mental illness, artists who self-identify as 2S LGBTQIAP, newcomer and refugee artists, young and emerging artists, artists working outside the downtown core. And if you're interested in our equity framework, you can go look at it there. So what does this program support? It provides support to visual artists who have a professional independent art practice. We can sort of define what professional means. Professional does not mean that you are necessarily getting paid. It means that this is your wish to be paid for your work. So if you haven't had the opportunity to either sell your work or to get an artist fee for the work that you're making, that is fine. What I always suggest to people is that, if you're at a party and someone asks what you do and you respond with artist, then yes, you can apply. If you're like, oh no, I work, as a corporate lawyer and sometimes I dabble in art, I don't think you should be applying. So professional artists for an independent art practice. So this is not, you're not working for someone else, making things for them. You're making things for yourself. You could have spent most of your career making something for someone else, and now you want to do something for your own independent art practice. That's also fine. For the creation / production of new work or the completion of works in progress, funds are intended to cover direct costs of creation, production, and materials. So that means you're not applying to get rent money. You're applying you'll pay yourself an artist fee. You're applying to get a space to make the work, to rent the space to make the work. You're applying for the materials to make the work. Those are the direct costs that we're speaking about. So visual arts includes drawing, painting, sculpture, the person who asked about sculpture, photography, mixed media, printmaking, performance art, installation, fine crafts, and more. There's always more that shows up in what we fund. If you don't make one of those things, but you're like, I am a visual artist, contact me. Say, this is what I make, and can I apply with it? We are really good at trying to figure out where you can apply to things if we can fund them. So we do not fund in this program film or video makers. They apply in media artists. So there's 2 levels for the grant. There's level 1, which is emerging artists. To early stages of your professional career, you've produced a small body of work, you've achieved some local recognition, you've had a show. Local recognition doesn't necessarily mean you've had a show here in Toronto. If you've come from somewhere else and you had local recognition from that place that you were, that's also completely fine. You've been working at this for 2 to 7 years of independent arts practice. So that means you do not, you're not doing an undergrad anymore. You're out of your undergrad and you've had 1 year of work.
Peter,
Yeah.
is Carfax the only way to determine artist fees?
Is Carfax the only way to determine artist fees? So you asked?
Yes.
So Carfax is a guideline. It's not like you can pay anyone anything for an artist fee that you want. And I highly recommend to go above Carfax what they're asking, but Carfax is just a guideline. But it's the guideline for Canada.
Cool. Yeah, that's a question from
Great.
the chat.
So level 2 is $10,000, and that's that you've had at least 7 years of experience, or you've had, you've made a reasonable body of work and you've achieved national or international recognition. So if you're starting to show internationally and you've only been at it for 4 years and you've just been making tons of work, I think that you might want to, be in level 2. But if you've been at it for 10 or 15 years and you're still, showing locally and you're making small amounts of work for whatever reason, you might want to apply level 1. But if you have any questions about, what level you should apply to, we can have that conversation. So every grant comes with an extra piece if this is about you. So it's an accessibility grant. So these are projects involving deaf artists and artists with disabilities. So an additional $5,000 can be asked for. This would be budgeted, saying what you need to accomplish the grant that you're putting forward. So if you have a movement or a disability that needs particular things, that will make that you would have to pay for out of the grant that you got, we can up your grant so you don't have to use the money to make the work to pay for that stuff. So when can the project happen? It has, you have to set it up that it's going to start 4 months after you apply. So if you applied today, May 24th, what's 4 months from June, July, August? So you're saying, I'm going to start working on it in late September. So you want to, put that down as when it starts. We can't retroactively fund you. So if you want to start it today, anything that any monies that you're going to use for it would have to be after September 24th. And you have 2 years to make this thing. I'll show you the application form where you can say, you can give us the timeline that you want to work at. Because if you can finish it within this year and you can apply every single year you would like, or if you're someone who needs a full 2 years, you can, take the full 2 years. So who can apply? As I said, a professional artist. That's someone who has specialized training in the field, not necessarily in academic institutions. It's recognized by your peers as an artist, has a history of public presentation, publication or production, who is committed to devoting more time to their artistic activity if financially feasible. So we recognize, due to systemic barriers within the broader arts community, that these things may not be who you are, but you still consider yourself an artist, then we can chat. Like the person I was chatting to earlier today had mostly an online presence and creates work within the punk scenes within Toronto, and they don't have necessarily gallery shows. So we had that conversation. So you have to be a Canadian citizen or permanent resident, or have an application pending permanent resident status, or be a protected person, which is an approved refugee claimant. And if we ask for it, you have to be able to provide that for us. So that's the only people that we can fund, who are residents of the city of Toronto for at least 1 year before they send in their application. This can't be, you have to give us the address of where you live. You can't be a post office or a studio address. Has to be where you live. If you're like away for up to 12 months because you're on a residency or something and you're coming back, then you just have to talk to me. But you need to have some space, a house or an apartment or somewhere you live here in Toronto. If you're an undergrad student, you're unable to apply. So you have to wait 1 year after you graduate. But if you're pursuing graduate studies, you can apply as long as the application has nothing to do with your grad. It won't be marked by a school. So if you're doing, you're working on something separately than what you need for your grad program, then yes, please apply. Or you're doing a grad work in something else, and you're having an artistic practice outside of that, then yes, you can apply. You have to maintain full copyright, financial, and creative control of the project. So that's why, making something for somebody else is not what you want to do. So this full creative, financial, copyright, financial, and creative control you have while you're making the project. Once you've made the project, if someone wants to buy it, that's fine. Or if someone, wants to show it somewhere and renting it from you, or if you're a filmmaker and they, want to produce it and sell it, and that's all great. But it's while you make it, you own the thing. If you apply to visual arts, you cannot apply to media arts in the same year. So if you do both, figure out which one is the strongest one in your brain to put forward. But if you do both and you apply for visual artist this year and you get it and you finish it, and next time you want to apply for media artist, that's great. As it's getting to that time of the night, that's like this lovely light is crossing my face. I apologize. All you can see is my mouth, it seems. That's okay. So as I said, individual artists may receive one discipline stream and one strategic initiative grant per calendar year. That is, except for they can also receive a Black Arts program. If you're working with another artist, you can apply as a collaborative. That's your one application for both artists who are in the collaboration. So what we don't fund in this is, we don't fund if you've made it before we tell you that we'll fund it. We cannot fund solely for the purpose of travel or exhibition of work, including the cost of framing. But, if you need to travel to make the work, that's fine, as long as we're funding the making of the work. Cost of framing, you want to look at OAC's exhibition assistance. We do not fund solely for the purpose of publishing, including the costs of printing. You can't buy capital purchases. So these are purchases, I think we've decided at over $750. So you can't buy yourself a new computer. You can't buy yourself a new camera. You can't buy yourself a new car. You can rent those things to yourself if that's how you want to pay for them. But you can buy all the materials to make the work.
Peter.
Yeah.
We have a question from the chat. Can you apply to 2 grants simultaneously, one as a curator and one as an artist?
Not simultaneously. But if you applied as a curator and did not get it, then you can apply as a visual artist. But if you received one or the other, then that would be your one grant.
Zoom user, does that
Sorry?
The person who asked the question is it's just Zoom user, so I'm like,
oh, I love Zoom user.
That answer. Okay, great. It answered your question. Wonderful.
It's my what
a
horrible name your parents gave you. They didn't realize that Zoom would become something in 20 years from wherever you were. They thought Zoom user was a great name, traditional name. Okay, so how do you apply? We'll go through that. You're going to apply online. We'll go through that. You have until 11:59 p.m. on October 1st, 2024 to send it in. So if you are deaf or a person with disabilities and you need help to write this thing, you can apply. You can ask for up to $500 to pay somebody to help you write this thing. So you just have to get in contact with me and tell me like what's going on, what you need, and tell me the person that's going to help you, and we can pay up to $500 for them to help you. So what you need to prepare, we're going to also go through this as a proposed use of grant, which is a 500-word explanation of what you're going to be doing with this grant. artist resume or CV detailing your artistic experience, support material, which we'll talk about, up to 10 images or videos. And don't send us anything through Google Drive. If it's a video, I recommend putting it up on YouTube or Vimeo and hiding it behind every single possible barrier you can, and just tell us how to get a look at it. So how's your application assessed? So funds are awarded on a competitive basis by an independent review panel, and we call that the grant review panel, and they're called peer assessors, the panelists that are there. And so peer assessors are other working artists. So this allows you to sort of understand who your audience you're writing to is. So you're not writing to people who don't know art. So these people know, are part of the art scene. You don't have to start like Caravaggio, you don't have to give us any art history lessons. You don't have to say that you're as good as Van Gogh, like none of that stuff. And just sort of tell us what you're doing. You don't have to explain painting to us. You don't have to explain photography to us. If you're taking a different tact at any of these things, you might want to take some time to explain the tact you're taking, but don't have to tell us like how paint is applied to the canvas. And so we have 5 people that are from across the city of Toronto that are trying to cover every single discipline and try to cover tons of different sort of way people are. So we don't have never have 5 white men from downtown looking at this applications, but it's difficult to get as wide a range as the applications that come in. But again, you can look at our equity policy, and that also talks about how we put together grant panels. They make an artistic assessment based on your past and proposed work. They're reviewed in a competitive context, so you're competing against the other people that apply at the same time. The peer assessors and the applications change within the year even. Like I contact about 12 assessors in January, and then we sort of switch around every single time that there's 5 different ones each time they look at it. But this means that if you're unsuccessful in your application, so you had it in today, you find out you're unsuccessful in September or October, you can hand in the same exact application next year, and you might be successful, and you might, because it's a different panel looking at it, they have different concerns, you're competing against a different crowd of people. So, but you can also, I do not, here's the next thing, decisions of the grant review are final, and we do not provide any feedback for you. So I don't tell you what the panel thought. I always suggest to applicants that I'm there to help you before you hand it in. So if you want to talk to me about what your project is, show me your writing. I'm much better at critiquing the writing. I will not critique the images that you're sending in or tell you that it's good or bad art. I will try to help you make the strongest argument for why you should be funded. So you can take advantage of that at any time. I highly recommend that it's much better to do that before you hand it in. I don't really see the worth of it happening after you found out the results. You find out the results online, so you'll get an email saying your results are available, and you go and check them out. If your project changes, like once you got the money, you're like, oh, I didn't really want to do this. I want to do something else. So as long as it's still theoretical, like the theory is still the same, or like the amount of work you're putting in still, requires the funding that you asked for, that will probably be fine. But just send me an email, give me a call, and we can chat about it. If you're like, oh, I didn't want to do this anymore, I'm going to completely do something, a completely different theoretical concern, I would say that you'd want to turn the grant down and reapply with your new concern.
Peter, we have a couple questions.
Sure.
Now's probably a good time because we are talking about projects as they change. Raha has another question about literary grants. Raha's wondering if they can apply for a literary grant for translating a previous project.
No, no. Yeah, we only it has to be the writer applying, and it has to be making new work.
Okay. And Tina asks, could you elaborate on the point, project funding solely for the purpose of publishing? If creating written work is part of your practice, could it qualify for funding?
So this is for the visual media arts, or for the visual artists. We can't fund you to produce a book. So we can't fund you to make like a book of your artwork. But if you are, writing as a part of the visual arts project that you're working on, or you make book arts, so you print books and hand sew them and make a small limited amount, that we can fund.
Yeah, Tina, you're welcome to unmute yourself and like ask if you have any follow-up questions.
Oh, hi. Creating zines, for example, that would qualify.
I like zines is tough. Zines on one side, I'd probably want to say you're going to literary. To produce zines, maybe.
So maybe if they were part of a series that included them as part of the project, then that would be more likely to qualify.
Like, I'll just make up something that you're doing.
Okay.
Like you're putting a show of prints together. Like you're like, I'm gonna make all these beautiful prints, but I'm also gonna create a zine out of these prints. So what you tell us is that you're making these beautiful prints, and you don't have to talk about the zine.
Oh, okay, I see.
That makes sense?
So it would be qualified under the prints.
Yeah, it'd be in the visual arts, and you're like, I'm making prints that tell a story, if they tell a story, or these prints.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
no problem.
One more question from the chat. Can you fund the designing of a photo book?
No.
A lot of people like books in this cohort.
No, we can't do that. And then I'll answer all your questions now, but if you have any more.
Yeah.
My email is everywhere, my phone number is everywhere. Yeah, I'm not that difficult to find. But it's again at the bottom of this page. So would we like to look at what a grant looks like? Why don't we do that? So I'm going to pretend to be this person, individual 3 fake. No, what? Why can't I pretend? Oh, this is where I want to be. So I'm pretending to be test individual 3 fake is my name. So once you go into the Toronto Arts Council and create a space for yourself as an individual, this is what it would look like. If you're an ad hoc group or an organization, or representing an ad hoc group or organization, you want to go to the other side. But as an individual or an ad hoc group or organization, as an individual, you can apply to visual arts, visual artist creation, media artist creation, visual media arts presentation. As an organization or ad hoc group, you can apply to all the operating and to visual media arts presentation. So here we are as an individual. This is some tips for first-time users, which are fairly simple like most websites, but take a look at them. This is your home. This is, you can hit the apply page and you can see all the things that you can apply to today if you wanted to. So if you're creative communities, if you're a community-based artist, you can apply in this space. visual media arts projects presentation for the curator in the group. You can apply here now. And again, you can look at the guidelines again here. Black Arts is open all year round, so you can apply there if you're a Black artist or you are representing a Black-led group. Animating Toronto Parks, which I talked about. Indigenous is open all year round, so if you're an Indigenous artist or representing an Indigenous arts group. Here's visual artist creation. Playwrights is also open. Writers is open. Historic sites is, oh my God, there's so much open. Historic sites is open, and dance projects. So we will just play in this. So again, the visual arts creation. Again, you can pick up the guidelines here. And you want to hit apply now. So here is, so this first page is applicant ID page. This applicant ID page, this all is what you filled in when you got the space, your space on the Toronto Arts Council portal. So this legal first name and legal last name, please put the name that we can pay you with. So the name that's on your bank account as your legal name and your legal first and last name. You can tell us your pronouns. That'd be great. If you go by a different name, you can put that different name here. Well, there's an open space here for you to look at. So this would be, and whatever name you put there is the name that will refer to you as. So yeah, whatever that happens to be. This is not a space for company or organization names. This is the space for your name. So whatever that is. If it's the same name, if you go by the same name as your legal name, then you can leave that blank. All this gets filled in by when you joined up. So your address and postal code should all be there. Your email should be there. Your website should be there. If you don't have a website, that's also fine. You don't need to fill that out. And then if you're applying with a co-applicant, there'd be a button here saying, yes, I'm applying with a co-applicant, and you'd have to fill out all the information about them. They would also have to be on the system. So they would have to create a space for themselves. They would also have to live in the city of Toronto. We have a voluntary self-identification. This again goes with the equity priority policy that I've talked about. So this voluntary self-identification, only I and the other members of the Toronto Arts Council team see this page. So the panel does not see this page. So you can say yes or no to the question of if this is applicable to you. And you answer that if you're a deaf person with disability, or a person living with mental illness, you say yes, and there's a space for you to explain further if you'd like. So deaf person with disability, person with mental illness is one, Indigenous, Black, persons of color, or 2SLGBTQIAP. If multiple ones that you belong to exist, then you can click as many as you want. That makes sense for you. And the other question here, is do you speak English at home? So is English the language that you most often speak or communicate to your friends and family with? That's mostly we're taking in as research to figure out are we doing a good job at responding to Toronto citizens. So if you speak another language at home, tell us what that language is. Like you're basically saying, I'd rather be reading this in that other language. So now we start getting into things that other people will see. So this is stuff the panel will see, stuff that that is getting a little bit more exciting. So again, it tells you here that is an ongoing deadline. These are things that we don't fund. So you choose a grant level, either $5,000 or $10,000, depending on what your experience level is. You give the thing a title, whatever the title is. That title can change. If you don't know what it's called yet, if it's just like Paintings by Peter, you can just say Paintings by Peter. Like, I don't know what it's going to be called yet. Or like New Work, or whatever you want. Just know that if I'm speaking to you, that's the title I'll be referring to. So you remember what you called it. So I don't call you up and say, oh, wanted to ask you about New Work. And you're like, what are you talking about? So as long as you remember what you're talking about, what you called it. So tell us the medium that you work in, or the medium this project will be in. Not necessarily because if you're anything like me, I have many different media that I work within, but this project, it might be a painting project or a sculpture project or a photo project or whatever. Put that there. Then you want to give us a 50-word project summary. This is not necessarily the theoretics behind the project. This is like the quick, like, this is what I'm doing. So I'm making 10 paintings about, I don't know what, sunlight, because I'm blinding me in the corner. And you might want to take like a 1-sentence sort of description on like what this project is. So what I use that project summary for is we both refer to it a lot in the panel discussions, like so we can quickly find applications that we're talking about. But also once all this has gone through the panel, I have to defend your projects to the board of directors. So I use the project summary to defend your projects to the board of directors. So the period covered by the grant, so you want to say 4 months from today, if you're writing it today, so September 24th. Again, you have 2 years. So you get to decide when you think you'll be done. So if you're like, oh, I know this will take me 2 years, then, September 24th, 2026. Or if you're like, oh no, I know that there's a show for this in April, I'll be done by April. You can, put April as the deadline. So what this really means is that the computer will start bothering you, will start sending you emails 2 months before that deadline, asking you for a final report. So you have to complete the final report to then apply for another grant within this another discipline-specific grant. So if you're coming up to that date, or you're starting to get those emails and you're not ready yet, and if it's within the 2 years, you can just send me an email saying, oh, I miscalculated. Can you change it to whatever date you want to change it to? And I can change it to that. If it's over those 2 years, I'll need more of an explanation, like why is it taking you so long? I have not yet told people no, that they can't have over 2 years, but it may happen one day. But yeah, I'll just need an explanation so I can defend it to the board if they ask what's happening to that money that they spent. This is the most exciting part of the grant. This scares a lot of people. It's a big empty box asking you to briefly describe how you will use the grant, include information of the work you intend to create, how the proposed work relates to your overall practice, and the relevant themes, techniques, aesthetic, or cultural concerns you plan to explore. You have 500 words to tell us these things. If you are interested, I'm happy to go through I think a simple way to do it. This is not the only way you can write this application, not the only successful way you can write this application. Not everyone who writes the application in this particular way is successful, but I think this is a good way to sort of start thinking about how to write this thing. So I usually ask for people to put their hands up, but I assume you're all sitting there, so you want this. Or is there questions to be asked before I go through this?
There is one question from Raha. Which grant does support performance art? A visual art project that accompanies by a performance art by the artist?
So if you're the artist who's made, you're making a bunch of paintings and performing with those paintings, yeah, you're applying in visual arts. If you're just a performance artist, like you're working within that tradition of performance arts, not necessarily, you're not working in like a larger sense of what other people think performance art is, like on a stage or like a theater or in front of a camera, but you're looking in that tradition of performance arts, you want to apply in visual arts. That, hope that makes sense for Raha.
Yeah, Raha, do you have any follow-up questions?
No, thank you.
Great, thanks. Okay, so What I recommend, so you have 500 words, is you spend the first 50 words talking about who you are as an artist, giving us an artist statement, saying, why do you make work? Not everyone makes work. So why do you make work? What's your deal? So what pushes you to make this work? And then you want to follow that up with about 100 words of past work that you've made that defends why you make work. Sort of like, I make work because X, and these are the works I've made that, deal with that thematic of X. They didn't want to spend the 300 words talking about what you're planning on making. So within those 300 words, you might want to, recall what your artist statement said you were interested in making, what you've made in the past, and where you're pushing. What sort of ideas are you pushing forward or going beyond what you've already done before? And then the final piece you want to put forward is it's 50 words on what would the audience think of it. Don't tell us that the audience will love it. We know the audience will love it. You want to put forward this idea of like, what will the audience be walking away thinking about after they see your show? Sort of like, I'm really interested in having the audience question, is sunlight good or bad? At the moment, it's not very good, but usually it's really great to have sunlight streaming in to me as I sit at the computer, but at the moment it's kind of hot. So that's sort of how I would build this application. Is there any questions?
Yeah, actually, Peter, I personally have a question as
Okay.
myself. I'm wondering, does it help or strengthen an application to have a venue or an exhibition confirmed? Like if we say in the application that we're working towards something, does that inherently make it a stronger application, or kind of does it not matter?
It doesn't matter. I mean, if you're working towards a show and you have like a venue, I would put it as just one line saying, this show, maybe even just in the project information, I am making 10 paintings about sunlight that'll be shown at, SLP Gallery in April 2024. That's as far as I would go. Like I have had some panelists who are excited that people have shows and want to give them funds to make those shows. I've had panelists that are like, well, why isn't the gallery paying for this? So it's like hit or miss if you you have a show. But I think if you do have a show, I would mention it, but not make it the bulk of your application.
Okay, that totally answers my question. Thank you.
Great. Anybody else?
There's a question in the chat that I'll read out.
Sure.
So Beth asks, could you repeat or elaborate on the first section you suggested, explaining our personal practice / themes, aka the part before describing the specific project?
Yeah, so mostly people like to call that a sort of an artist statement, sort of like who you are. So you want to say who you are, and what are you making? Like, what is your thematics that you're interested in pursuing? So you don't have to talk about that you're a painter, but you might like, at the moment I'm painting about sunlight. I mean, I might be like, okay, my name is Peter Kingstone. I'm really interested in the environmental concerns and interested in the future of the way we've been treating this planet. And my past work is around water or land, and my future work will be around sunlight. But expand that to 500 words. But so the first 50 words, I would just suggest you're talking about yourself, not necessarily about the work you're making. Just talk about why you're doing this.
That sound okay? You're welcome to ask any
Yeah,
other.
please ask further.
Yeah, I'm just making sure I understand. So that's all within one section that has a 500 word maximum, right? So you're just kind of talking about like contextualizing what you're about to explain about the specific project within the kind of context of your existing practice.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm suggesting like sort of thinking about it in these smaller steps. If breaking down those 500 words into smaller steps helps you,
Mhm.
I see a lot of people that are able to weave all that through 500 words, and that's fabulous. But if you're like sitting there going, I've got a big blank page, how do I start? I suggest start with talking about yourself.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I just want to make sure I understood what you're suggesting. Thank you so much.
Great, no problem.
Gladys has their hand up. Gladys, you got a question for us?
Yeah. So for the 300 words that you mentioned is dedicated for the plan of making, are you more interested in what the work is about and the idea behind it, or the schedule of making it?
Yeah, we don't need the schedule. We don't need a budget. Like, don't tell us like, I'll be starting this day and be finishing this day. You've already told us that in the project information. We don't need to, like, oh, I'll spend 1 month doing research and then next month in a studio painting. You don't have to tell us how much your paints cost or how much your studio costs. So like the money isn't based on your budget. And you can get 5 or 10,000. And that's, it's not based on the budget at all.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah, there's nowhere to put in a budget. As many times people want to put in a budget, though, it seems weird.
I guess like I'll just quickly hop in and mention in case it's helpful for anyone to hear, but grant writing isn't unlike proposal writing, and at Xpace we're really trying to demystify that process and really introduce folks that are like not that experienced with the process of application writing to the essential components and like what goes into them. So on our YouTube page we have a complete like walkthrough of Xpace's open call submission guidelines, and it has things like tips on writing an artist statement or tips on writing a project statement. So these things,
Great.
while it isn't one-to-one, there are things that you could definitely like gain from watching that. And it's narrated by me, your boy, and Natalie. So
Great.
encourage you to check it out.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah,
And
and
then you want, oh, go
folks.
ahead, Natalie.
I'll put it in the chat for you folks too. It's a 3-part series and it sort of breaks down, like Peter was mentioning, the difference between a bio or an artist statement. So yeah, hope that's helpful.
Great. And you also just want to think about the language you're using. You want to be positive. You want to be firm. You want to be like, this is what I'm making. We don't want to see any sort of like, I'm dreaming about this, or maybe I'll make that, or this is possible. No, tell us like what you're doing. Be firm about it. Be, to the point that you're saying to the panel that if they don't fund it, they're a bunch of idiots, without saying you're a bunch of idiots. So you want to put forward a very powerful, be proud of the thing that you're doing and be proud and like, what this thing is. Yeah, and remember this, you want to, I'll get to this in the next two pieces, but you want to make everything sort of respond to that 300-word project proposal that you're putting forward, or that 500-word project proposal you're putting forward. So you want, all the things that you've talked about before, all the project information, that responds back to that, what you're planning on doing, and everything within it in the rest of the application responds to what you're planning on doing. So, read it over a couple of times, see if you like start going off track somewhere else, and you like, I don't know what I remember Canada Council telling me once is after every sentence, you should ask yourself, like, why is this sentence here? What is this sentence doing to support my argument to put this project on?
A quick question from David. Does the content of the work need to be related to Toronto, or does that help the assessment at all?
No. No, you can be making the work about anything. You can be making the work anywhere, as long as you live in the city of Toronto. Yeah. Toronto specific projects, I actually don't do that well, honestly.
That's good to know.
Yeah, so like I'm gonna, I definitely want to do whatever, this street of something or other. Probably not going to do that well. Any other questions? Okay, we can move on. So yeah, you want to give us a maximum 3-page artist resume or CV. Luckily, we have probably one of those 3 YouTube pieces that will tell you what an artist CV or artist resume is. But it isn't the one that you applied for whatever job you have. This we only want to know about your artistic career. And you want to focus it on the work that you've created. So you want to talk about, the work you've created, the shows that you've had, if there's anyone written about the shows that you've had. If you have an artistic education, you can talk about that. We don't need to know if what your day job, if you have a day job is, or your night job is, unless that job really comes in your work. Like if you're painting Big Macs, it'd be nice that we also knew that you worked at McDonald's. If you're painting, but if you're not, then and you work at McDonald's, then we don't need to know that you're working at McDonald's. So you want to really sort of focus it in, like you're telling the story a different way. So you've told this proposed use of grant, this sort of who you are artist statement, and you're telling that same story through a listing of the things that you've done. And maximum 3 pages. If you're a beginning artist, that might seem that that's a lot of work, or a lot of pages to fill up. You can add little bits in there. So if you're like, this show was curated by this person, this is why I was in this show, this is why I was in this show, that's great until you get to 3 pages. Very quickly, you'll find that 3 pages is not enough to fill all the stuff that you've done. And you'll have to start cutting out those memories of shows past. Now, the other exciting space is support material. So you can upload 10 images or 10 minutes of video, or a combination of video and images. It's up to you and whatever responds to you. If you're a performance artist, you might want to show some of your performance pieces in a video setting. Or if you're a sculptural artist and you need 3 dimensions of the thing that we're looking at, that you can show that as a video. Or you might be a video installation artist, and you're as part of this work you want to show a piece of that video. That's also all great. Or then images. You want to keep you can show us larger shots of like an installation of the work, but you want to pick all the works that you have. Some small baby has their hand up.
That's me, the talking baby.
That's the baby has her hand up.
That's right. Do you give grants to children? Okay, I'm just wondering for the support material, because I understand for emerging artists we need to demonstrate that we've done work, like for example outside of school, we finished our undergrad, so forth. But could you use something that you made as, for example, an undergrad thesis project, if it like achieved a certain level of recognition and so forth, and you think it's a strong example of your work, can you still use that as a work sample?
Yeah, so TAC will accept undergrad work.
Okay.
I know OAC, Canada Council, I think they won't accept undergrad work, but TAC we're fine accepting undergrad work, as long as you're like, yeah, you don't want to say, oh, I got an A on this project, like that won't help you at all. But if it fits into the narrative of who you are as an artist and what you're planning on making, then that's great.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. I probably will hit this button and you will not be able to see this. No. Okay. So what oh, Gladys, you have another question.
All right, sorry, I have some issues with the updates button. So would you prefer us to show more like different works or multiple images of the same work, but with more details?
So you want to make sure that all the things you put into this respond to what you're planning on making. So if you're want to show us both technical skills, like if you're a painter and you want to show us technical skills, you want to put some of those paintings that show technical skills. but then you're also like, oh, but I want to show my, growth in environmental art that I was talking about, and you want to show some images that do that as well.
Okay.
So you really want to put together a package that like strongly responds to what you're planning on making.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So you'll give us the title, the medium, the dimensions of work. I mean, if the thing doesn't, exist, it only exists digitally, you can say it exists digitally as a dimensions of work. Or if it exists digitally and you are hoping that it's going to be the size of a billboard, you can tell us it's the size of a billboard. The year it was created, whatever year that is. And this question, how is this work relevant to your proposed project, is really important, and one that a lot of people don't answer correctly. They just tell us what the thing looks like, and the panel can see the thing, so you don't need to tell us what it looks like. Just really like how by showing us this, how will this further the argument that you should be funded? So again, you can be talking about the technical, how this is how you paint, or this is how you're interested in environmental issues, or whatever you're of course what you're interested in. And then you upload the image, or you give us a link to a video, but not a Google link. So you give us the YouTube or Vimeo or something like that.
We have a couple questions in the chat. I'll
Great.
first start off with Fatma. They ask, can we include exhibitions that we have been selected to be a part of that open soon, but isn't open just yet, in our resumes?
Yeah, sure.
Upcoming shows.
Yeah, upcoming shows are great. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Paula asks, would it be acceptable to showcase a plan or a sketch of a project you're planning on making alongside past works that support the project?
Yeah, so I would really focus on the past works, but if like you feel that your proposed use of grant didn't get across exactly what you're sort of talking about, or if it's a three-dimensional work or something you think that the panel would like to see a sketch of, I would limit that to 2, possibly 3 at most out of your 10. Then that's fine.
Okay. Another question from Raha is, if our sample works are installation, digital art, or video, but the project we are applying for is paintings, but it's like the same theme and the same subject matter, is that acceptable?
Yeah. I mean, you'll probably want to spend some time in your proposed use of grant why you've decided to switch in the medium. And you might want to spend a little bit of time saying like, what your your education in painting. I imagine the panel would like to see at least one painting that you've done before. So that painting can be, this is how I paint, not necessarily about the thematic that you're interested in, and you're showing other video and photo base that is based on the thematic you're interested in, but so you can say, and why is this relevant? Say, well, this is how I paint. And so we can see how you paint.
Cool. Keep going, Peter. You're doing amazing. Also, do you need a break? Like, how are you feeling?
I'm taking water as I go. I'm fine.
Staying hydrated.
Other than we can someone turn the sun off for a second.
I got you. Hold on. Like,
down a little.
Yeah. I proudly don't have blinds or curtains in my house, but it gets to be problematic at this particular time.
That's okay. You look great. Ask.
Great. Okay, so that's the support material. And then the accessibility expenses. So if you require more money because you have an accessibility need, this is where you fill it out. So this is not the budget for the work that you're planning on making, nor is it like, oh, I can't make the work on 5,000, I need more money to make that work. It is if like you need accessibility help. So you say yes, and then you give us, this is the time that you would want to give us a budget. So you can give us a budget on what you need. And needs can be Like, you need a gallery or a studio assistant because you're not as able to do the things you need to do, or you need drugs to keep you focused and going, and you don't have a drug plan, and that's what you're going to need the money for, or you need help to move between places. Like, I'm going to get a studio, but the studio will be far away, and I can't travel there, so I'll need taxi fare and stuff like that. So it can be lots of different things. So as they say here, examples they're not limited to. So if you are a deaf artist and you need to be working with someone and you need some interpretation or audio description, closed captioning, this is all for you as an artist. Communication assistance, attendant care, or if you are working with an elder, or you need a support worker, or you need specific equipment rentals or other supports. You can apply for all that here.
Peter, we have a question in the
Sure.
chat. It's mainly about image to video ratio. So Gladys asks, if I intend to submit both images and video, can I submit 10 images and 10-minute videos?
No, so it's 10. So it's 10, each image counts for 1, and each minute of video counts for 1. So you can show 4 images and 6 minutes of video, or 7 images and 3 minutes of video.
Does that answer your question, Gladys?
Yep.
Great.
Hey, okay, great.
So then the last piece is a declaration. So basically this all says you didn't lie to us. And you put your name, it says your name, says your date, and you approve this. So it says you didn't lie to us, says all the things that you need to know about why you're applying for this. But before you submit it, if you want someone to read it over, like myself, you can save it all the way through, so you don't have to do it all in one shot. You can keep saving it, and then you can call me and say, "Oh, I've got it done. I've passed it by a few friends, and I think it's good, but I'm happy to sit down with you and go through it and see what you think about it." That can happen like online in a Zoom conversation or a Teams conversation, or it can happen completely through email, or if you like to go for coffee or tea or anything, I'll even buy you a coffee or a tea. We can go do that wherever that happens to be. Yeah, so that's what I had to say. I'm happy to go through anything else or answer any further questions, or delve into something else quickly if anyone's up for it.
Now's the time, guys. It's Q&A time, baby. Feel free to unmute yourself and just like ask a question. Or you can drop it in the chat and I can read it out too.
Yeah, well, the chat's number seems to be jumping up, so I assume people are saying something.
They're all just thanking you. You're incredible.
Yes.
Maybe should I close? No, I'll leave the screen up just in case you have to go somewhere in particular.
People are saying very helpful. Thank you. Thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us. That was awesome. Thank you very much. One thing that I've found helpful is putting all of the questions in a separate Word doc and then answering them there. That was one of the first mistakes I made when I was new to applying to grants, was like thinking that I had to do it within the portal and then losing that information. So like that is,
I mean, if you have a dodgy internet connection or a dodgy computer, I would like take the question, move it over to like my Word document or whatever, and work on it there. And you can do like all the counts of how many words it is in that space as well, and then put it back in. Yeah.
I'll also add in terms of my own experiences, like being on juries for grants and being on juries for submissions. A lot about grant writing is like accessible reading. Juries are going through so many applications, so I feel like you want to make sure that your writing is in like, I find it's easier and encourages me to get through it if it's in like smaller digestible chunks rather than like a wall of text.
Yeah, wall of text aren't easy. That's why I suggest these sort of like 4 sort of subheadings, but turning it into a story, making sure it all sort of flows together, making sure that your reader wants to go to the next sentence, that you're like hooking them in and like getting them excited about your project, are all skills that are that we never get taught anywhere. But it's always nice to have someone who's a writer that you happen to know that you can read it over. Point form, you can write it in point form if you'd like. I don't think I've seen a single grant been given to anyone written in point form. But you can break that rule if you'd like to.
Not yet. I was saying not yet.
But I suggest like telling a story, like, letting us into who you are, what you do, what you plan on doing it, and who do you think will care about it. And that audience piece can be like, I think everyone in the world should see this, and this is why I think they should see this, because they should really be concerned with these particular things. Or I'm making this thing for, Mexican punks, and this is what I think they'll do. And we've funded projects that have a very limited audience because we think that they're really pushing the audience and doing a great job. And we've funded projects with a very general audience.
We have a question in the chat. It's from Paula. They ask, even if I can't apply for a Toronto Arts Council grant for non-Toronto residents, can I still contact you?
You can. I mean, like, so if you don't live in Toronto, of course, you can apply for Ontario Arts Council grants, Canada Council grants, and you can start pressuring your city to have a granting system that funds individual artists for themselves. But yes, we can, please contact me and I'm happy to help in any way.
Yeah, and also just like tacking on top of that too, it is within Xspace's it's within Natalie's and my priorities to really support the professional development of emerging artists and designers, and that comes with helping review applications and like chatting through ideas. So we offer copywriting help. Like it could be at any stage. We can like chat about ideas, or I could like hop into a Google Doc and like give you feedback on something you're working on, and I can be as light or as intensive as you need and request. It's a service that not too many people take us up on, but it's really helpful. Of course, also like talk to Peter too. Like, but
yeah, talk to as many people as you can.
Too.
Yeah, talk to as many people as you can. I mean, I do find some artists like, contact me and feel like they don't want to tell me what their project is. I don't understand that. I mean,
like, it's a secret.
I'm not going to steal your project. So yeah, like try to be as open about your project and be open to critique. Like, and if you're not open to critique, please tell me that you're not open to critique, and we can have a different conversation about it.
Yeah, and we while Xpace is definitely Toronto based, we do just support emerging artists in general. So the scope of that in this context definitely extends beyond the city. So yeah, Paula, I hear what you're saying. Like definitely, we are trying to like help emerging artists in any location figure out their way around this like really specific scene.
Yeah, and get a show at Xpace.
Yeah.
Xpace.
Apply to our open call. That's it.
Yeah.
And if you have any questions too, like Philip and I, like Philip mentioned earlier, we're always here to support, offer studio visits, chat with you about your proposal or project that you're thinking of. Like Peter mentioned too, like that's one of the favorite parts of our job too. So take people up on it, because it is really, really helpful. And it can change the scope of your project, or you can find something out that you didn't know before, just by talking with someone face to face. Yeah. Does anyone have any other additional questions or anything they want to chat about? Peter is here with us now, so take advantage.
Hi, I have a question.
Great.
So does the application online autosave your work? Is there a save?
There's a save draft at the
Save draft.
bottom.
Okay.
Yeah. So because I'm going through the back door to see this test individual 3 fake, if I actually was in an application, that the bottom would be submit or save draft. So you can just save
Okay.
draft.
Yeah,
Oh.
sorry, you go first. I interrupted you.
Oh, sorry, it's a different question, so you can go ahead.
Oh, well, I'll just say, like as Nat mentioned before, we find it's really helpful to like copy and paste the questions into a Google Doc, because I firmly believe that the TAC's portal is great, but your local internet service provider might not be great. So, so doing that kind of ensures that you're working within a separate place, and then when the time comes, you can just like copy and paste it at the right moment. That way, you're not putting your blood, sweat, and tears just like into the
Yeah.
portal, even though it's great. Just because you
But
never
and
know.
just so you know, like if you like once you've got it all in and you save draft, I can look at it from my side. So if you're like, oh, can you check out what I've written? Here's the application number, here's my name. You don't have to send me like a PDF of it. You can also create PDFs for yourself, but you don't have to send me a PDF of it. You can just sort of say it's there and I can go look at it.
Pros and cons to both, I guess.
You had another question though.
Yes. So, is there after, for example, after the project is approved, the application goes through, it's approved by the board, would artists be required to have like a sponsored by TAC
Yeah.
somewhere?
Yeah, so if you are approved, the project that you're making, you'll have to put, this is funded by the Toronto Arts Council. So that could be on, if you have a gallery show of it, it's at the front of the show, it says, your name and sponsored by the Toronto Arts Council, or it's in the catalog of the show or something, or it's on the website that you want to thank the Toronto Arts Council. Or if you don't get a show or you're putting it up on your own website, you want to put this particular project. So not you're funded by the Toronto Arts Council. It's the project that's funded by the Toronto Arts Council. You don't want to put that on that particular project. Yeah. And then so once you've completed it, you want to fill out a final report and just tell us how it went and show us the images from it. But then, yeah, say that we funded it.
Okay, and for the report, so it includes a description and you would include media. Is there anything else that's part of the report?
Just seeing if I have a report here. I don't. Oh, everything's not submitted. Okay. So final report asks like, oh, so what were you trying to do? So you re-explain what you're trying to do. We say, have you done it? Was it successful? And be honest, like, if you're like, oh, it didn't turn out the way I wanted to, or it was great, and this is where it's showing, or if you haven't gotten around to getting it out yet, these are the places I'm planning on sending it to. And it asks if anyone else helped you with this work. The final reports are sort of generalized across. So they're the same as the theater reports. So asking if anyone helped you, almost everyone says no. I'm a solo artist. This is all. And then we ask you for images, and if you can send them to us.
Okay, so a budget is not part of
Budget's never
the
needed
report.
for visual artists. A budget is
Oh,
needed
okay.
for visual artists creation, and no budget is ever needed. Budgets are needed for media artist creation, and budgets are needed for visual media arts presentation, but not for visual artist creation.
So what does the visual arts presentation include exactly?
So visual media arts presentation are if you're a curator or a presenter and you're applying to have a show, like you're curating a show, you have to be curating it in Toronto and have the space you're curating it at. Or if you're a media artist presenter, you have to be, have the theater and all that sort of stuff. And that can be an individual or it can be an ad hoc group. So if a bunch of you are getting together to have a show, or it can be an organization that's having the show or the film festival. And that can be a gallery show, it could be a film festival, it could be a series of talks about media arts or visual arts or something within the arts. Or it can be workshops that you're doing for professional artists, or it can be residencies that you're working on.
Okay. Thank you. And let's see, I thought of another question as well.
Great.
Oh, so for the if you are working with an ad hoc group, then we should include a description of the group as an entity, or
So
descriptions
if
of
you're,
the individuals, or both.
yeah, so an ad hoc group can only be would be applying for presentation. They can't create work as an ad hoc group in this in our system. So you're presenting an ad hoc group. So your Friends of Zoom is the name of your ad hoc group. So you put forward that the Friends of Zoom are curating whatever this project is, or putting together this particular project. Within it, you want to say who the people are, what the project's about, who your audience is, where it's going to be. You give us a budget, and you make sure that you have a bank account that we can put money in. So you have a Friends of Zoom bank account somewhere. You don't have to set that bank account until you get a yes from us, but that's what you will need to get the money.
And is there requirements for each member of the group? They have to have been practicing for X number of years?
Nope. So like as a group, we're funding the group. We're funding Friends of Zoom. As long as an ad hoc group, as long as 50% plus one are Toronto residents. So whatever that means, or whoever's the Toronto residents is. So you can be, you can invite the artist from outside of Toronto to be part of the group and curate a show together, or put a show up together. Or you could, some people could be curators, some people could be artists in the show. It all sort of depends, up to you. It can be different experience levels of artists. It can be artists that could not apply to Toronto Arts Council that will be funded by the project that you're putting forward.
Great. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Gladys, for it.
Can I apply to a TAC grants and other grants at the same time? For example, like also Ontario Arts Council and Canada Council of the Arts. And like if so, can I accept funding from both places for the same project?
Yeah. Yeah. So Ontario Arts Council and Canada Council will ask you for a budget. And within that budget, you're going to say that you put TAC as one of the funders of the project. So if the project needs more than the $5,000 of TAC, you'll be asking for other funding from OAC and Canada Council. So we don't need a budget, but they do. But
Okay,
yeah.
so like if it's like before I get a response from TAC, like I don't know if I'll get a TAC grant or not.
Yeah, so you want to put that as pending in the grant, saying like you're applying for TAC for $5,000, and they all have like confirmed or pending. So you just say it's pending.
Okay, great. Thank you.
No problem.
I have one question, Peter, that I think would be interesting for people to know. How many grants can an individual apply to per year for TAC?
So you can, we'll go back to this space here. So an individual can apply to, this will open in a second. Or not. It's thinking about opening. Oh, there we go. Okay. So an individual can apply to a discipline-based program and a strategic program every single year. They must complete their final reports in a discipline before applying for another discipline, or their strategic program before applying for another strategic program. This is all unless you are a Black artist or a Black individual artist, you can apply for a Black Arts and something else. They have to be two different projects. It can't be the same thing you're applying for. So if you're a Black artist and you're making paintings about one thing and then you're making paintings about a completely different thing, you can apply for both, one in Black Arts and one in visual arts. And then you can always apply to these TAC and partnerships as well. So these, you can apply as many or whatever the rules are in each one of these. But yes, you can apply for 2.
Great. Thank you.
Dare I say we've come to the end of our
I
My
think
God.
so. Oh, Raha says, so we can't apply for literary and visual at the same time.
That is correct. But, literary is coming up in June 19th. You'll find out, I think you find out in the end of September for literary. You still have, a couple days to apply for visual arts. But I think it's mid-September you find out. You'll have a couple days to apply to visual arts if you don't get the literary arts.
And in terms of like your structure of the year, is it January to December? That would be like the year of TAC funding.
For visual arts, the year starts in November. So like you can apply in October, but when you apply November 1st, so November 1st, 2024, you're actually applying in the 2025 year.
Gotcha. Great. Any other questions for Peter?
Yes. What do the dates in terms of the turnaround time? What would that look like?
Yeah, it's 4 months.
4 months. Okay,
Yeah.
great. Thank
So
you.
if you applied today, you're going to want to be starting at the end of September.
Okay.
And adding to that, when does the project have to take place? For example, if I apply for a curatorial project, can it be for next year?
Yeah. So if you apply for the August deadline, your project has to take place after November 1st. If you apply for the March deadline, it would have to take place after June 1st. But you have 2 years to complete it. So it can happen November 1st, 2024, or 2 years after that.
Okay.
Great. All right. If that's all the questions, thank you so much, Peter, for your time and expertise and wisdom. Yeah, please reach out to Philip or I if you have any additional questions about Xpace specific programming or open call. Yeah, want to add anything, Phil?
Yeah, I mean, Xpace, we do workshops and programming and events all year round. So if you live in the city of Toronto and, haven't swung by it, we'd be happy to see you. We really do our best to do right by the emerging artist community. So, everyone's always welcome here. Currently, we have a round of exhibitions on through to the end of or through to the beginning of July. So yeah, if you come by, we'd love to see you.
And it's curated by Philip.
Oh, I didn't want to do that.
Amazing
And
show.
I'm often out on the scene, checking out openings or checking out galleries, and I probably won't recognize you because you're possibly not on camera. But if you want to say hi to me, I'm always happy to say hi to anybody.
Right. Thank you so much, Peter. Thanks, everyone, and see you soon.
See you in the wild.